What if the deepest mysteries of King Arthur still lie hidden beneath Cornwall's ancient rocks? Could the tales of Cornwall hold truths that history has long overlooked? These are our stories, our world, where we unravel the myths that define us. Tonight, we wander through fog-shrouded moors and weathered ruins, diving into tales of doomed heroes, mysterious creatures, and enduring enigmas. Stories that linger quietly under Cornwall's star-filled skies. Perhaps, within these legends, a truth lies buried, one that even history dares not recall. The origin of myths, Tintagel Castle, Uther, Igraine, and Merlin. It is said that the night a king was born began with a shadow gliding over the waves. No ordinary dusk fell upon Cornwall's rugged cliffs, where Tintagel Castle stood as a steadfast sentinel, its stone spires cloaked in silvery haze. A chilly wind carried secrets through the rocky inlets, and the ceaseless waves below whispered ancient spells, their voice as timeless as the earth itself. In that eerie twilight, the veil between realms grew thin, and destiny stirred softly beneath the stars. At Tintagel, perched on its solitary headland, torches glowed, casting golden sparks into the night. This was the stronghold of Gorlois, Duke of Cornwall, a nobleman renowned for his courage and might, his loyalty as unyielding as the wild terrain he governed. By his side was Igraine, the heart and treasure of his domain, her beauty the subject of hushed tales across Britain. Igraine's elegance outshone the brightest spring blossoms. Her hair flowed like streams of bronze kissed by sunlight, her eyes as deep as the emerald seas beneath Tintagel's cliffs, brimming with warmth and mystery. It was said that to look upon Igraine was to be utterly captivated, a dangerous spell for any heart that ventured too close. Far across the tempestuous lands, Uther Pendragon, Britain's warrior king, had heard of Igraine's unparalleled beauty, sung in reverent tones by wandering minstrels. Her radiance soon became an unyielding obsession within him, a burning desire no reason or counsel could quench. Compelled by passion, Uther rallied his knights and hastened to Cornwall under the guise of forging alliances and discussing war. Yet beneath this pretext lay his true purpose, to behold Igraine. Gorlois, wary of the king's motives, his gaze as keen as a hawk's and instincts sharpened by battle, kept his cherished Tintagel fortified and protected. He welcomed Uther courteously but cautiously, sensing the fire behind the king's courteous mask. After a banquet held for his royal guest, the duke retreated to Tintagel with Igraine, leaving Uther in restless anguish. On the castle's ramparts, beneath the vigilant stars, Uther stood, consumed by inner conflict. His knights, gathered around flickering campfires in the distant fields, watched their king pace like a trapped beast, sleepless and agitated. At last, driven by desperation, Uther called for the one who might aid him, Merlin, the sage whose name alone sent chills through the stoutest souls. Merlin appeared, draped in robes dark as night, materializing like a specter. Beneath his hood, his eyes gleamed with the weight of countless eras, holding the wisdom and grief of the earth itself. When Uther confessed his torment, Merlin nodded, his expression grave yet unsurprised. "There is a way to achieve your heart's longing," Merlin said quietly, his voice carrying a power beyond mere speech. "There will be joy, but shadow as well. And your choices tonight shall ripple beyond your own life." Uther hesitated. Possess Igraine's love? He would pay any price. Merlin smiled, though sadness lingered in his gaze, and began weaving a spell that pulled the very shadows around them. From the swirling mists emerged an illusion so perfect it fooled even the moon above. Before Merlin's outstretched hands, Uther's rugged features melted away, replaced by the likeness of Gorlois himself. Disguised thus, cloaked in borrowed form and honor, Uther rode alone to Tintagel, crossing the perilous causeway where waves clawed hungrily at the stone. The fortress gates opened at once for their duke, and Uther, heart pounding in anticipation and dread, entered unchallenged into the private chambers where Igraine awaited her husband's return. In the soft glow of candles, Igraine greeted who she believed was her beloved Gorlois. Feeling relief at his safe return from the troubled meeting with the king, she embraced him warmly, sensing something indefinably different, yet attributing it merely to weariness or worry. That night, under a sky heavy with prophecy, Arthur was conceived, though neither Uther nor Igraine yet knew the weight and glory of their union. As dawn broke like a golden wave over the sea, news reached Tintagel that Gorlois had been slain in battle that very night, his spirit now forever part of the Cornish winds. Igraine, her heart shrouded in grief and confusion, faced the bitter revelation of Merlin's art. Yet when Uther appeared openly again, his true face filled with both triumph and remorse, she saw in his eyes sincerity beneath his guilt. In time, sorrow softened into understanding, and she accepted the king as her husband. Their love, now openly woven by destiny. Months later, within the echoing stone walls of Tintagel, amid the murmur of the ocean tides, Igraine gave birth to a son. He was radiant, bright-eyed, his tiny fists clenched as if ready to seize the world. Merlin stood watching quietly from the shadows, knowing full well the boy's true destiny. With whispered words of comfort and assurance, Merlin took the infant away to be raised secretly in safety, far from royal intrigue. Yet from that moment, Tintagel itself became a place apart, a land touched by legend, forever known as the birthplace of Arthur, the king who would draw Excalibur from stone and usher Britain into its brightest age. For centuries since, visitors to Tintagel have felt the lingering presence of magic. They say that at twilight, the ghostly echoes of Merlin's spell still ripple through the castle ruins. That sometimes, when the moon aligns just so, a phantom knight rides silently across the causeway. And beneath the cliffs, Merlin's cave still whispers secrets, as if the great seer himself were still waiting, patient and knowing, for destiny's wheel to turn once more. So the legend endures, vivid as moonlight upon water, reminding us gently that love, desire, and destiny are threads deeply woven into the fabric of human existence. It whispers softly that our choices, both courageous and flawed, ripple outward, far beyond our reckoning, shaping not only our own stories, but the very world itself. Excalibur's End, Dozmary Pool, and the Lady of the Lake. They say the destiny of kings lies not in crowns, nor castles, nor victories, but in water. On the wild and windswept expanse of Cornwall's Bodmin Moor lies a place shrouded in legend. A dark, lonely tarn known as Dozmary Pool. Set upon a barren plateau under the open sky, it mirrors the heavens above. Its surface, polished by centuries, reflecting moonlight and starlight alike, as though the pool itself were a silent oracle, whispering secrets only to the night. Few ventured willingly near Dozmary, for the land about it was harsh, cloaked in heather and gorse, where mists rolled in without warning and swallowed the world in white silence. Those who dared approach spoke of strange voices in the wind, of soft splashes and ripples that moved without visible cause, and of visions shimmering beneath the water's glassy calm. Yet no tale haunted Dozmary Pool more profoundly than that of Excalibur, the great sword that once belonged to Arthur Pendragon, the High King of Britain. Long had Arthur ruled, his deeds woven into the fabric of Britain itself, each thread shining brightly with chivalry and valor. But at last, even the mightiest kingdoms are destined to falter. In the dim twilight of his reign, Arthur rode to battle at Camlan, a final fateful clash against his nephew, Mordred, whose envy and treachery had set fire to Britain's peace. On that battlefield, where sorrow mingled with courage, Arthur emerged victorious, but mortally wounded, his life draining away with each heartbeat. As the mist rose from Camlan's bloodied fields, Arthur lay beneath the shadowed sky, his breaths ragged, yet his heart still resolute. Beside him knelt the last of his loyal knights, a warrior whose honor had been forged by a lifetime of faithful service. Arthur's voice was quiet but commanding, burdened with gravity and prophecy. "Take Excalibur," he murmured, motioning weakly to the blade resting beside him. A sword of unmatched splendor, forged by magic, its steel glittering with ancient runes and the dreams of generations. "Cast it into the waters of Dozmary. Return it whence it came." Sir Bedivere's heart rebelled. How could he abandon such a magnificent blade, an icon of justice and strength? Surely Britain had greater need of Excalibur than the silent waters. Yet Arthur's eyes, clouded by pain but clear with purpose, brooked no dissent. Bound by honor, Bedivere took up the sword and set forth into the gloom. His steps were heavy, filled with sorrow, and each stride toward Dozmary echoed in his heart like a solemn drumbeat. Approaching the pool, the knight stood motionless, captivated by Excalibur's beauty. Its silver surface shimmered, luminous as a star held in his hand, adorned with jewels that gleamed even beneath the shroud of darkness. The sword seemed to whisper, pleading against abandonment. Bedivere's will wavered, his grip tightened, and he turned away, hiding the sword beneath a tangled thicket. Returning to Arthur, the knight knelt again. The king's voice was soft but stern. "Tell me what you saw." "Only the ripples, my liege," Bedivere replied nervously. "Only the sigh of the night." Arthur's weary gaze sharpened. "You have not obeyed me. The sword must return to the waters. Therein lies its destiny and our hope." Shamed, Bedivere retraced his steps, heart aching. Again, he stood at the pool's edge. Again, he lifted Excalibur, and again hesitation bound him. The blade seemed alive with sorrowful radiance. And again, Bedivere yielded to temptation, secreting it once more among the stones and bracken. Arthur's eyes closed briefly in disappointment upon hearing Bedivere's second lie. With waning strength, he raised himself and spoke with finality. "Thrice must a thing be done before fate is sealed. Do as I command. Cast Excalibur into the lake." With heavy limbs and heavier heart, Sir Bedivere journeyed for the third and final time to Dozmary Pool. This night was darker, colder, filled with shadows and whispers of endings and beginnings intertwined. He drew Excalibur from its hiding place and raised it high, staring deeply into its mirrored brilliance one last time. Gathering all his resolve, he stepped to the brink and hurled the enchanted blade skyward. For a heartbeat, it seemed the sword itself defied gravity, suspended between worlds. Then it fell, turning end over end. Before the sword could touch the surface, something wondrous occurred. From the dark waters arose an arm, slender, graceful, clothed in silken sleeves of glistening white, radiant as moonlight, woven with pearls. The Lady of the Lake, guardian of waters, ancient and deep, had returned. Her delicate fingers closed upon Excalibur's hilt effortlessly, as if reclaiming what had always been hers. She lifted the sword thrice in solemn benediction, its blade catching starlight and radiating a pure glow, a final salute to Arthur's glorious reign. Then, as quietly as she had emerged, she withdrew beneath the water's surface, sword and arm vanishing without a ripple. Bedivere stood rooted, awe and reverence swelling in his chest. Returning to Arthur, he recounted truthfully this final vision, his voice trembling with wonder and regret. The king nodded slowly, peace finally settling upon his troubled brow. "Now my destiny is fulfilled," Arthur murmured softly. With fading breath, he instructed Bedivere to carry him to the shore where a black-sailed barge awaited, floating silently as though woven from the night itself. Gently, Bedivere placed his king aboard, watching through tears as Arthur was borne away into the mist. Legend whispers that the boat carried him to Avalon, a mystical isle beyond the veil of time, where wounds are healed and heroes rest, waiting until Britain's hour of greatest need. Bedivere lingered by the shore, alone, the world suddenly larger and emptier than before. Back at Dozmary Pool, the water lay smooth again, its secrets hidden beneath reflections of stars. Yet the story was not ended, merely paused, held gently in water's patient embrace. Over centuries, seekers have stood beside this pool, pondering its silent depths, hoping to glimpse the shining steel, the graceful hand, or perhaps the outline of a boat returning at long last from Avalon's misted shore. But Dozmary Pool reveals nothing to those who demand answers, only to those who listen with humble hearts. It remains there waiting, reminding each visitor softly and silently that true power does not belong to kings or knights, nor to blades or crowns. Instead, destiny lies deeper, within the quiet acceptance that what we hold most precious is borrowed only briefly and must inevitably return to the timeless currents from whence it came. Lyonesse, the lost kingdom beneath the waves. Some say if you stand upon the westernmost cliffs of Cornwall, where the land meets an endless ocean, and listen with a patient heart, you can still hear the faint ringing of church bells beneath the waves. There, beyond the rocky edges of Land's End, where cliffs of granite plunge defiantly into the restless Atlantic, once lay the shining kingdom of Lyonesse, a realm abundant in beauty, rich in fields of emerald grasses, orchards sweet with blossoms, and forests alive with the rustling of ancient leaves. It stretched out gracefully towards what we now call the Isles of Scilly. Though in those days, these islands were merely the kingdom's highest hills, dotted with fair villages and quiet chapels. Lyonesse was no ordinary kingdom. Bards whispered that it was favored by the divine, a land touched by a gentle enchantment where crops grew effortlessly and harvests were plentiful. Its people lived joyous lives beneath mild skies, and their homes glowed warmly with candles at twilight. Each cottage window, a small beacon casting pools of amber light across the quiet countryside. At its heart stood a proud castle of white stone where King Meliodas reigned with wisdom and strength. Lyonesse's hallways were hung with silks, floors adorned with polished marble that reflected the light of countless candles. From the great towers and balconies, one could gaze upon peaceful meadows, softly rolling hills, and winding rivers that flowed serenely towards the embracing sea. Yet even in the brightest realms, shadows may linger. As years passed, the kingdom slowly forgot gratitude for its blessings. But it was too late. The sea itself, furious and unstoppable, now surged inland. Waves, taller than any tower, crashed against Lyonesse's shores, sweeping away harbors, flattening homes, swallowing roads and bridges. Panicked villagers fled towards higher ground, struggling through muddy torrents, crying out names lost in the howling storm. Horses whinnied in fear. Cattle stampeded helplessly, and the earth trembled beneath the assault of endless waters. Yet, even amidst chaos, moments of courage and love bloomed briefly. Parents shielded children. Friends aided one another through rising waters. But the kingdom's foundations were crumbling. Lyonesse, proud and beautiful, could not withstand nature's immense wrath. Amidst the pandemonium was a noble named Tristan, a sturdy, courageous man. He gathered his family quickly, mounting his favorite white stallion, a magnificent beast, strong as ocean currents and swift as storm winds. He spurred forward, racing desperately toward higher land. Behind him, waves rolled inexorably forward, devouring every trace of home and heart he had ever known. With breathless urgency, horse and rider galloped, their path disappearing beneath crashing tides, even as they fled. Legend recounts how Tristan's horse galloped with such ferocious speed that a shoe flew from its hoof, left gleaming on rocky ground as the last trace of fleeing hope. This lost shoe would become forever the emblem of Tristan's line, a testament to survival in the face of ruin. Tristan turned at the crest of the hill that marked the very edge of Cornwall, panting, exhausted, and heartbroken. Behind him, beneath angry skies and sheets of rain, the kingdom of Lyonesse sank slowly beneath the seething waves, spires disappearing, walls crumbling, villages submerged beneath endless blue. Within mere hours, where fertile fields and peaceful towns had once sprawled, now lay only water, wild and unbounded. When dawn broke, pale and hesitant upon the world, Lyonesse was gone. Where once stood the proud kingdom, there stretched only endless ocean, broken here and there by tiny islands. Hilltops become lonely isles, survivors were few. Their stories became legend, woven deeply into Cornish memory and sung softly around fires through generations. In time, fishermen spoke of strange visions in the waters west of Cornwall, of shadowy ruins glimpsed in clear weather, of church spires seen dimly beneath the waves, still tolling muffled bells. Some claimed they heard faint singing, echoes from submerged chapels where ghosts gathered eternally to lament their lost realm. Generations passed, yet Lyonesse was never forgotten. Her story became a gentle lesson whispered through Cornwall, a reminder of humility and reverence, teaching that even the proudest kingdom is fragile when faced with nature's boundless might. Every storm became a gentle echo. Every surge of ocean, a quiet warning. So the legend endures, carried on the winds that sweep over the cliffs of Land's End, whispered softly by the waves that lap gently upon the Isles of Scilly. Perhaps Lyonesse still waits beneath the waves, not destroyed, but merely sleeping, its people dreaming until the hour when the tides may one day recede, revealing once again golden fields, gleaming spires, and warm hearths. Until that day, we who stand upon Cornwall's western shores, listening carefully, might understand the quiet truth Lyonesse offers us, that everything we hold dear is balanced upon delicate threads, easily unraveled by pride or neglect. Beneath the sea, the bells of Lyonesse toll gently still, not simply mourning, but softly reminding each generation that the true treasures of kingdoms and hearts must always be guarded carefully, or they may swiftly vanish beneath relentless tides. Tristan and Iseult, Cornwall's timeless love story. Love often arrives disguised as fate, but sometimes fate itself wears love as its mask. In the emerald heart of Cornwall, where lush green hills cradle valleys draped in morning mist, stood a castle whose stones were weathered with stories older than memory. It was known as Castle Door, and within its walls echoed the whispers of one of the greatest romances ever told, the tale of Tristan and Iseult, whose love bloomed under stars crossed by destiny, bound by passion, yet sealed by tragedy. Tristan was born into sorrow, losing his mother as he drew his first breath. Raised by loyal knights, he became a young man of extraordinary valor, unmatched skill, and haunting beauty. His hair, dark as midnight, eyes sharp and wise beyond their years, his demeanor carrying the quiet dignity of one marked for greatness. In Cornwall, he was beloved as nephew and trusted warrior of King Mark, a monarch whose heart was noble, yet whose lonely spirit wandered restlessly, seeking companionship. Across the turbulent Irish Sea, on Ireland's windswept shores, lived Iseult, daughter of the proud King of Ireland, a woman whose loveliness poets and bards could scarcely capture. Golden as a summer dawn, she possessed eyes like deep forest pools, a voice soft as rainfall upon roses, and a spirit as fierce as it was gentle. Her fame had spread far beyond her father's kingdom, whispered by sailors and sung by minstrels until even Cornwall echoed softly with her name. It was amid the chaos of conflict that Tristan's path first crossed with Iseult's. Cornwall and Ireland stood opposed, blades flashing beneath stormy skies. During battle, Tristan slew Ireland's mightiest champion, Morholt, Iseult's beloved uncle. Though Tristan himself was gravely wounded, poisoned by Morholt's envenomed blade. Unable to find healing within Cornwall, Tristan was cast adrift in a small boat, helplessly surrendered to fate's currents, drifting inevitably towards Irish shores. The waves carried him gently, like guiding hands of destiny, until he lay broken upon Ireland's coast. Iseult herself discovered him. Not recognizing her uncle's killer, her heart moved only by compassion. With careful hands, she tended his wounds, healing him with herbs and whispered prayers, her touch soft as sunlight upon blossoms. As days passed, hearts slowly intertwined, though neither yet knew what fate awaited their love. Recovered, Tristan returned reluctantly to Cornwall. Yet the memory of Iseult haunted him nightly. Her voice, her gentle grace, burned within his dreams, and fate, never idle, soon intervened again. King Mark, weary of solitude, declared he would marry, hearing whispers of Ireland's incomparable princess. Tristan, loyal and unyielding, volunteered to sail once more to Ireland, this time to bring back the bride destined for his king. Upon reaching Ireland's shores again, Tristan found Iseult's kingdom oppressed by a monstrous dragon, terrorizing the countryside with fiery breath and talons sharp as swords. Resolutely, Tristan faced the creature, battling beneath skies blackened by smoke and ash. After fierce combat, he emerged victorious, but gravely wounded once more. Iseult, seeking her champion, discovered the wounded knight. But this time, as she tended him, her searching eyes found something unmistakable. The broken shard of Tristan's sword matched precisely the shard removed from Morholt's fatal wound. Realizing Tristan was her uncle's killer, she raised her dagger to avenge him. But something in Tristan's gaze, noble yet sorrowful, held her hand suspended in midair. Her anger dissolved, replaced by a complicated ache that settled within her heart. Soon thereafter, a peace was struck, and Iseult's father agreed she would marry King Mark. Yet, fearing the uncertainties ahead, Iseult's mother, a skilled enchantress, brewed a powerful love potion, entrusting it to Iseult's faithful maid, Brangane, instructing that it be shared between Iseult and Mark upon arrival in Cornwall, ensuring love and happiness. But the sea voyage proved long, and fate twisted strangely aboard that ship. Under a pale moon, thirst led Tristan and Iseult to innocently sip the potion, mistaking it for meat. It appeared only to the purest of hearts, cloaked always in subtlety and mystery. Of all knights who journeyed forth in this sacred pursuit, none shine more brightly than Sir Galahad, the pure-hearted, and Sir Perceval, the seeker of truths. Legends speak of many lands and countless paths traversed by these knights. Yet few remember that the trail of this profound quest wound gently and secretly through Cornwall itself, a place of quiet contemplation where rivers murmur softly and hermitages stand hidden beneath whispering boughs. Indeed, it was here, amid these serene chapels and ancient holy wells, that the very air seemed thickened with spiritual yearning. Galahad was unique among knights, young, fair-haired, and radiant with virtue. Son of Lancelot, yet free from his father's tormented passions, Galahad bore purity like an invisible cloak, his eyes reflecting the innocence of stars. It was foretold he alone possessed the heart pure enough to gaze fully upon the Grail without fear or failing. Perceval, by contrast, began his journey veiled in youthful naivety. Born in rustic simplicity, Perceval was the innocent seeker, guided by instinct rather than knowledge, courageously wandering paths untrodden, his soul filled with questions deeper than oceans. His quest was not merely for a cup, but for understanding, for wisdom hidden beneath riddles of destiny. The paths of these knights, though different in manner, converged in Cornwall, in a hidden chapel deep within a silent wood, surrounded by great oaks whose branches twisted gracefully toward heaven. The chapel stood humbly, stone weathered with moss, ivy embracing its walls lovingly, sunlight filtering through windows tinted gold and azure by glass painted centuries ago. It was in this chapel, hidden from worldly gaze, that Galahad knelt one quiet morning, his thoughts clear and calm as mountain lakes. As dawn's light painted him gently through stained glass, he felt a stirring deep within, an impulse beckoning him toward the altar. Approaching slowly, reverently, his heart pounded, for upon the altar rested an empty space where the Grail had briefly manifested itself, vanishing again into the ether, leaving only whispers of glory. His spirit lifted, Galahad resolved anew. The Grail's elusive mystery was not merely a prize, but an invitation, an ever-receding horizon, urging him deeper into truth. He knew now that the Grail was not to be possessed, but pursued eternally, each step closer bringing enlightenment rather than conquest. Perceval, too, wandered Cornwall's quiet lanes and secret glades. He stumbled upon a holy well, hidden in a shadowed grove, waters cool and clear, adorned with flowers and tokens left by pilgrims. Gazing deeply into its depths, he felt an unspoken presence, gentle yet powerful, a silent guardian of secrets older than the stone surrounding him. Kneeling quietly, Perceval listened, hearing no words, yet sensing truths unfold softly within his heart. Wisdom, he realized, was found not in loud proclamations, but in silent contemplation, in moments shared gently between human hearts and sacred earth. As both knights journeyed further, their paths intertwined and parted, each seeking alone, yet guided subtly by the Grail's invisible presence. Galahad found solace in remote hermitages where humble monks illuminated manuscripts beneath candlelight, speaking quietly of visions received during prayer. Perceval discovered wisdom in humble villages, his spirit deepened through conversations with common folk, their simple truths teaching him compassion, humility, and grace. One evening, as twilight descended in gentle shades of lavender and rose, the two knights met beside a quiet riverbank beneath starlight. Seated on fallen logs amidst wildflowers and soft grasses, they shared stories, their voices hushed and reverent. Around them, the world seemed to pause, listening attentively as these two souls recounted their journeys. Galahad spoke of fleeting visions, glimpses of radiant light, chalices briefly glimpsed then vanished. Perceval shared stories of humble wisdom, laughter shared by simple hearths, and truths whispered softly by the wind. As night deepened, they understood profoundly that the Grail quest was less about achieving the object itself and more about who they became while seeking it. Galahad realized the purity he carried was a gift meant to inspire, not isolate. Perceval understood his innocence had been a doorway, guiding him gently toward wisdom rather than away from it. Together, beneath a moon now fully risen, they offered prayers beneath the boundless stars. Their words whispered in gratitude for their shared quest and for the quiet guiding spirit that had shaped their paths through Cornwall's sacred landscape. In time, Galahad would reach the Grail itself, ascending gently toward the heavens, completing his earthly journey in serene joy. Perceval, forever wandering, would carry wisdom gleaned from simple places, teaching others compassion through quiet example. Cornwall itself would remember their gentle footsteps, preserving quietly in its chapels, holy wells, and secret hermitages, echoes of a quest begun and ended within human hearts. And so the legend quietly persists, whispered softly by Cornwall's breezes, taught gently by patient streams. Those who seek the Grail's sacred presence must journey not outward but inward, toward quiet spaces of contemplation beneath skies vast enough to embrace every question, every yearning. For the greatest truth, the Knights of the Grail remind us, is not in claiming the sacred chalice, but in allowing its mystery to shape us softly from within. Giants of Cornwall, Tales of Cormoran and Bolster. Giants once strode proudly across Cornwall's shores, and the hills remember every footstep. In the golden days, when legends were as real as stone and earth, when towering cliffs and windswept hillsides whispered ancient tales beneath endless skies, Cornwall was a land ruled not only by kings and knights, but by giants, enormous beings whose shadows stretched over valleys and whose laughter rolled like thunder across fields and seas. The greatest of these giants was named Cormoran, whose massive form dominated the rocky island now known as St. Michael's Mount. Rising steeply from restless seas, this granite isle stood like a crown above waves, and atop its peak, Cormoran built his dwelling from mighty slabs torn from the mountains themselves. It was said that when the giant walked, his footsteps shook the earth, sending ripples through quiet fishing villages along the coast. Cormoran was as fierce as he was immense, broad shoulders towering above treetops, his beard thick as tangled seaweed, eyes dark and stormy as ocean tempests. He roared with laughter at storms and delighted in tormenting the villages below. Each night, under moonlight bright as polished silver, he waded through the tides, plucking cattle from fields, smashing boats against rocky shores, and stealing harvests grown with patient toil. His appetite, endless as the ocean itself, brought suffering to all who dwelt nearby. Yet even giants, it seemed, could meet their match. In a nearby village, whose houses huddled protectively together beneath ancient trees, lived a courageous youth named Jack. Small of stature but fierce of spirit, Jack was quick-witted, nimble-footed, his eyes sharp with cunning, and heart filled with a bravery that defied his humble size. Moved by the suffering of his people, Jack resolved to confront Cormoran directly. Knowing strength alone could not prevail, he chose wit and craftiness as weapons. One moonlit night, beneath stars that watched curiously from above, Jack crept quietly to the sandy beach that linked the mainland to the giant's island home. In the cover of darkness, he dug swiftly and silently, forming a deep pit in the sand, wide enough to trap even the largest foot. With the first pale rays of dawn brightening the eastern horizon, Jack called out boldly, "Come, you cowardly brute! Cease your thieving and show yourself." The giant's laughter, deep and rumbling, echoed from above, followed swiftly by footsteps thundering downward. Enraged, Cormoran charged across the causeway, oblivious to the clever trap. With a roar, he stumbled headlong into the hidden pit, his massive form collapsing into the sands below. Trapped and helpless, Jack, seizing the moment, climbed quickly upon the giant's broad chest, his eyes fierce and determined, holding a blade keen as moonlight against Cormoran's throat. "Yield, giant," Jack demanded, his voice ringing clearly across the silent sands. "Promise never again to trouble our village, or here you will meet your end." Cormoran, startled by bravery so immense from one so small, conceded defeat grudgingly, swearing never again to harm the villagers. From that day forward, Jack was celebrated throughout Cornwall as Jack the Giant Killer. His legend whispered by firesides, his cunning bravery admired by generations. Yet Cormoran was not Cornwall's only giant. Another figure loomed large, whose story resonated among clifftops and echoed through deep valleys. His name was Bolster, and unlike Cormoran, he possessed an air both fierce and tragic. Towering above hills near St. Agnes, Bolster was vast as mountains, his stride covering leagues effortlessly, his voice deep as caverns beneath Cornwall's rolling landscape. Bolster's pride and strength were unmatched, but so too was his heart, in which burned an impossible love for Agnes, a fair and virtuous maiden whose beauty was renowned. Agnes, gentle yet wise, saw clearly that Bolster's love threatened the peace of her village. Yet she knew also the giant's heart could not easily be turned aside. Thus, she devised a clever trial, promising Bolster she would marry him if only he proved his love was true. "Show me your devotion," she said gently, her voice soft yet strong. "Fill this hole with your own blood, and I shall be yours." Bolster laughed heartily, for the hole was small, carved delicately into the rocky cliffs. Yet Agnes, wise and cunning, had secretly connected the tiny hole to a hidden cavern beneath. Bolster eagerly cut his wrist, allowing his blood to flow freely. Yet the small opening drank endlessly, never filling, never ceasing. The giant's strength ebbed swiftly, until finally, weakened and pale, he stumbled forward, collapsing upon the cliffside. Realizing at last the cunning of Agnes and her quiet courage, he gazed into her gentle eyes with fading admiration, accepting gracefully the defeat born of love. Thus, Bolster perished, his enormous form becoming one with Cornwall's cliffs and hills. His story preserved forever in rock and earth. Agnes became revered for her wisdom and bravery, her tale sung softly in homes across Cornwall. Today, standing atop St. Michael's Mount or wandering the rugged hills near St. Agnes, travelers still sense the lingering presence of giants. They gaze upward, imagining towering forms silhouetted against skies alive with clouds and stars. Children laugh nervously, listening carefully for deep laughter rumbling through valleys, for the heavy steps echoing beneath hills. But the true lesson giants leave behind is quiet, told gently through the years. Strength may conquer briefly, but cleverness, bravery, and the quiet strength of wisdom endure longer, becoming embedded deeply into the very land itself. The hills, after all, never truly forget those whose footsteps shaped their story. Mischievous spirits, Piskies and Spriggans. If ever you find yourself wandering lost on Cornwall's moors, listen closely. For mischief hides behind laughter and danger beneath a fairy's smile. On windswept Cornish moors, beneath skies that shift endlessly from bright blue to stormy gray, among rocks honed by centuries of rain and wind, dwell creatures older than any human memory. They live hidden within shadowed hollows, sheltered by ancient stone circles and tangled thickets. Small beings, lithe and agile, whose laughter dances lightly through the heather. These are the Piskies, creatures born of moonbeams and mischief. Their delicate forms, no taller than wildflowers, slender limbs shimmering in starlight, eyes bright as polished gems, clad in leaves and petals. They dart swiftly among grasses and mossy stones, their voices musical yet filled with cunning joy. Cornwall's moors echo gently with their playful giggles. For the Piskies delight above all in leading travelers astray. It is said that a lone wanderer upon the moor might catch glimpses of tiny figures dancing just beyond sight, moving swiftly from shadow to shadow. Enchanted by curiosity, the traveler follows, stepping deeper into mist-shrouded terrain. Soon, familiar landmarks vanish quietly behind, paths grow unfamiliar, trees twist oddly, and hills shift subtly until suddenly the wanderer finds himself utterly lost, ensnared within the playful webs woven by the Piskies. Yet these fey folk harbor no true malice. Their mischief arises from playful delight rather than cruelty. After enjoying their harmless jest, they vanish into twilight laughter, leaving their bewildered victim to eventually find their way home, wiser and perhaps more cautious of the playful beings who share their land. But Cornwall's moors conceal darker spirits, too, creatures less playful, whose presence whispers of hidden menace. These are the Spriggans, guardians of abandoned ruins, watchers of buried treasures. Unlike their merry cousins, Spriggans move stealthily, their shadowy forms larger and more foreboding, hunched, grotesque figures cloaked in bark and earth, eyes gleaming coldly beneath tangled brows. The Spriggans protect secrets fiercely. They dwell within forgotten barrows and ancient burial mounds, keeping silent vigil over riches hidden long ago. Should any traveler trespass upon their guarded places, the Spriggans transform, swelling from small figures into towering guardians, fierce as storms. Trees tremble at their wrath. Stones shift uneasily beneath heavy footsteps. And the intruder flees, terror-stricken by the sudden, inexplicable transformation of shadowy shapes. Yet Spriggans, too, offer lessons. Villagers know to respect the ancient places, leaving quiet offerings, flowers, berries, or polished stones, to appease these watchful spirits. By respecting their boundaries, harmony is maintained, and the Spriggans become silent protectors rather than fearsome foes. Long ago, in a tiny village upon Cornwall's edge, lived a young shepherd named Thomas. Gentle-hearted yet daring, Thomas often wandered deep onto the moors, guiding sheep beneath endless skies. One evening, as twilight settled softly, he glimpsed tiny lanterns flickering gently amidst the heather, golden lights moving gracefully like fireflies. Curiosity drew him forward until laughter surrounded him, sweet, musical, and alluring. Thomas turned, realizing the familiar path had vanished. The moor stretched endlessly around him, strange and featureless beneath a rising moon. Panic stirred within, yet amidst laughter echoing softly, he remembered the wisdom of elders. Kneeling quietly, he turned his coat inside out, a charm said to break the enchantment. Instantly, the laughter quieted gently. Looking upward, Thomas saw dozens of tiny figures, curious and wide-eyed, surrounding him, smiling apologetically. "Well played, friend," they whispered softly, bowing gracefully. "Return safely home, wiser for your trouble." From that night forward, Thomas carried tokens of respect, leaving flowers and berries near stones marked with strange runes, never again disturbed by fairy trickery. But another tale warns of darker consequences. Near Bodmin Moor stood a ruined chapel, its ancient stones crumbled, ivy choking its walls. Villagers whispered fearfully of treasures buried beneath its floor, guarded fiercely by Spriggans. Yet greed overcame fear, and a reckless man named Lyonesse approached one night, determined to claim hidden wealth. As moonlight poured gently through crumbling windows, Lyonesse began digging eagerly, visions of gold filling his heart. Soon, a cold breeze whispered harshly, shadows gathering silently around him. Glancing upward, Lyonesse saw twisted forms emerging from darkness, eyes burning fiercely, forms swelling monstrously. Terrified, he fled, leaving behind tools and hopes of treasure, forever haunted by nightmares of shadowy guardians. Thus, Cornwall's moors whisper gently of two paths, playful mischief or dangerous folly. Those who approach gently, offering respect and humility, receive laughter and gentle lessons from the Piskies. Those driven by greed or disrespect risk wrathful encounters with the fierce Spriggans. Yet perhaps the deeper lesson these fairy folk teach, whispered gently through ages, is that beneath the laughter of mischief or the silence of guarded secrets lies a profound truth. Respecting the unseen ensures harmony, while arrogance invites ruin. Listen, then, carefully upon Cornwall's moors, for behind every whispered giggle and every shadowy shape lies wisdom older than stone. The Knockers, guardians of the tin mines. Beneath Cornwall's rugged earth, listen closely, for even stone has secrets to share. Deep beneath Cornwall's green hills and rocky cliffs lies another world, a place of darkness and whispers where pathways twist endlessly through veins of copper and tin. Here, in tunnels carved with calloused hands and sweat-covered brows, miners once labored tirelessly beneath the flickering glow of lanterns, their shadows dancing softly upon cavern walls. In these subterranean realms, men toiled in darkness, trusting their lives daily to wooden beams and candlelight. Yet miners knew well they were not alone beneath the earth. In the profound silence between echoes of pick striking stone, in the gentle creaks of timbers holding back tons of rock, another presence stirred quietly, mysterious, unseen, ever watchful. These hidden beings were known simply as the Knockers. Small of stature, yet mighty in spirit, Knockers resembled men in miniature, no taller than a miner's knee. Their features, shrouded in shadow, were rarely glimpsed clearly. Yet those who claimed to have seen them described rugged faces, gleaming eyes, and powerful arms adept at wielding hammers smaller than a man's palm, clad in clothing of leather and earth-toned cloth. They moved swiftly and silently through tunnels, their footsteps barely audible, their murmurs blending seamlessly with the quiet rustle of subterranean waters. Most remarkable about the Knockers, however, was not their form, but their nature. They were neither entirely friendly nor openly hostile. Rather, they embodied a cautious guardianship, overseeing the mines as protectors of both men and precious metals. They guided miners toward hidden veins of tin, tapping gently on rock walls, sounds echoing softly, rhythmically, beckoning men closer. Yet just as often, their taps warned miners away from hidden dangers, unstable shafts, pockets of poisonous gas, flooding waters lurking unseen. Cornwall's miners quickly learned to heed these signals, offering quiet gratitude, whispered prayers, and tokens of respect to the unseen guardians. It became tradition to leave small gifts, pieces of bread, biscuits, or sometimes cider, in dark recesses, tokens silently accepted by the Knockers, their trust earned slowly and carefully over generations. Yet tales speak of those foolish enough to ignore these small guardians. One such story tells of a young miner named Samuel. Headstrong and impatient, Samuel scorned old traditions, dismissing stories of Knockers as mere superstition. Each morning, lantern in hand, he descended boldly into darkness, laughing loudly, defying the whispered warnings of elder miners. One evening, deep within tunnels carved through granite, Samuel swung his pick impatiently, ignoring faint tapping sounds from nearby walls. Suddenly, his candle flickered strangely, shadows dancing wildly around him. Pausing briefly, he heard tapping louder now, sharp, insistent, warning clearly. Yet pride and stubbornness deafened him. With an angry cry, he swung again, striking stone with reckless force. With an angry cry, he swung again, striking stone with reckless force. Immediately, rock splintered violently, a terrible crack echoing through the tunnel. Samuel stumbled backward, eyes widening in horror as stone began falling, timbers snapping beneath the immense pressure. As darkness closed in, he glimpsed fleeting figures rushing silently past him, small shadows carrying hammers, their eyes fierce yet sorrowful. Later, rescued barely alive by fellow miners who found him beneath rubble, Samuel spoke only of small figures whose warnings he ignored. From that day, humility replaced arrogance within him. He never again descended without pausing quietly to listen, offering silent respect to those who guarded his life underground. In contrast, another miner named Thomas, wise and respectful, lived peacefully beneath the earth. He moved carefully through tunnels, pausing often to hear subtle signals from knockers hidden in darkness. One evening, while working quietly, he heard gentle tapping distinctly different from anything heard before, steady, rhythmic, insistent. Curious, Thomas followed carefully, winding deeper through twisting passages. Finally, in a forgotten cavern, shimmering softly beneath candlelight, he discovered rich veins of pure tin gleaming gently in darkness. Heart swelling with gratitude, Thomas turned slowly, glimpsing briefly a small figure watching from shadowed corners, a knocker, eyes shining warmly, nodding gently before fading silently into darkness. From then onward, Thomas prospered, always sharing generously his newfound wealth, honoring unseen protectors with gratitude, and teaching younger miners the wisdom of respect and humility. His legacy lived quietly within Cornwall's mines, an enduring testament to harmony beneath Earth's surface. Yet, as Cornwall's mining declined, tunnels abandoned and darkened, miners' lanterns extinguished forever, the knockers retreated deeper underground. Today, visitors to empty mines speak quietly of hearing faint taps echoing through darkness, sounds perhaps merely imagined, perhaps gentle reminders that these silent guardians remain quietly vigilant. Standing now upon Cornwall's hills, feeling earth beneath feet, one might wonder quietly if beneath soil and rock, knockers still labor, guiding unseen paths through darkness. They teach gently through subtle whispers and quiet taps that harmony exists when humans respect guardians unseen, protectors quietly watching over worlds hidden beneath familiar surfaces. For even in darkness, wisdom whispers softly. The Beast of Bodmin Moor, Cornwall's modern legend. When night falls over Bodmin Moor, something moves in darkness, something older than memory, yet younger than myth. In the heart of Cornwall, beneath skies scattered with stars and swept by cold winds, lies Bodmin Moor, a wild expanse of heather-clad hills, desolate granite tors, and secret bogs shrouded in silken mist. By daylight, this landscape is quietly beautiful, a tapestry woven from muted purples and greens, punctuated by ancient standing stones whose origins lie forgotten. But as twilight descends gently over these moors, another side of Bodmin emerges, a darker, more mysterious face known to villagers and travelers alike. For centuries, those who journeyed across Bodmin Moor after dusk spoke quietly of something elusive lurking just beyond sight. Farmers returning late from fields glimpsed fleeting shadows slipping silently through heather. Travelers halted suddenly on pathways, hearts pounding as eyes caught brief movement at the periphery of vision, something swift, dark, feline, and impossibly large. They called this mysterious creature the Beast of Bodmin Moor. Described in hushed whispers around tavern fires, the beast was said to resemble a massive black panther, muscular and sleek, its form blending effortlessly into darkness, eyes burning golden beneath moonlight. Witnesses spoke quietly of its fluid grace, how it moved silently as shadows across rugged terrain. Its presence felt more than seen, a chill, a prickling at the back of the neck, a breath of quiet menace. Yet despite fear, fascination bloomed gently within Cornish hearts. Tales multiplied swiftly, intertwining fact and fancy until myth became inseparable from truth. Sightings persisted quietly through generations, reports of livestock mysteriously vanished, paw prints pressed deeply into damp earth, eerie cries echoing softly beneath moonlit skies. In the village of Alternun, nestled comfortably beside the moor, lived an elderly woman named Morwenna. Wise-eyed and gentle, her cottage sat upon the edge of wild lands, smoke rising softly from her chimney, herbs drying quietly beneath rafters. She knew the moor intimately, its moods and secrets familiar as old friends. One autumn evening, beneath skies glowing softly with twilight, Morwenna stepped outside, lantern held gently in hand. Across moors, darkening gently into velvet shadows, she sensed something watching. Turning slowly, she saw clearly, silhouetted atop distant rocks, a great black cat, majestic and still, gazing intently toward her. Though fear stirred quietly within, Morwenna felt strangely calm, meeting the beast's gaze steadily. For a moment, suspended gently between heartbeats, human and beast regarded one another silently, mutual respect flowing quietly across distance. Then, gracefully, the beast turned, melting silently into twilight shadows, leaving Morwenna standing quietly beneath starlit skies, heart pondering softly. She understood then, Bodmin Moor sheltered not merely a monster, but something deeper, a guardian, perhaps, embodying wildness untamed, reminding humankind gently of nature's power, of mysteries still lingering quietly upon earth. Yet fascination spurred investigation. Newspapers whispered theories, escaped panthers from distant zoos, remnants of exotic pets released into wilderness, or perhaps creatures surviving quietly since prehistoric times. Experts traveled from afar, searching eagerly for evidence. Yet proof remained elusive, tracks vanishing quietly into marshy soil, photographic glimpses blurred gently by mist and distance. Some skeptics dismiss sightings as superstition, imagination heightened quietly by darkness and loneliness. Yet villagers remained convinced, quietly respecting the beast's elusive nature, continuing traditions begun generations before, bringing livestock indoors at dusk, warning travelers gently of moorland paths after twilight, speaking respectfully of the creature whose presence defined their land. As years passed, sightings faded gradually, yet lingered gently enough to preserve mystery. Visitors still gazed thoughtfully towards mist-shrouded hills, wondering quietly where the dark shapes glimpsed briefly at dusk represent reality or imagination. Bodmin Moor, silent and enigmatic, reveals nothing. Its secrets preserved gently beneath heather and stone. Perhaps truth matters less than legend. The Beast of Bodmin Moor endures quietly, not merely as creature, but as symbol, reminding humankind softly of humility toward nature's mysteries, respect for wilderness untouched, and the subtle power held quietly within shadows. So, beneath Cornwall's quiet skies, when darkness drapes gently over heathered hills, listen carefully. For perhaps, hidden quietly within shadows, nature watches silently, reminding gently that even in darkness, wonder lives on. Sometimes, mystery itself is nature's greatest lesson. And so we return to Cornwall, land of legends, whispered gently by the sea, whose secrets linger quietly beneath waves, behind ancient stones, and within shadowed moors. Perhaps every legend we explore reminds us softly of this truth: history fades, kingdoms crumble, but the stories we share outlast them all. Yet Cornwall is just one tapestry within a greater realm of wonder. Across northern borders, Scotland awaits, rich in myths where lochs conceal ancient creatures and mountains hide mysterious beings within swirling mist. If these journeys stir your heart, consider gently subscribing. Together, let us wander deeper into lands where legends live quietly forever. And remember, the world keeps its secrets, but the stories we tell bring them softly to life.